Hello BookTube, and welcome to the show, to my loyal band of cult members from all around the world. Welcome back. I love you all. A very quick spoiler warning, I will be talking about the plot, but for this book, it's so much more about your worldview and how the story affects you. It's more than just a book, but still, mild spoiler warnings. Just a little bit. Kindred, 1979 by Octavia E. Butler. This is my very first Octavia Butler book. It has been on my radar for quite a while, but I've been keeping my eye out, but I never saw it in the second-hand shops. But then, a cult member, Charlie Lapworth, bought me this for Christmas, so I bumped it to the top of my TBR. Pro tip for hunting for science fiction books in second-hand stores, you have to look a little bit further than the sci-fi and fantasy section, because most of the people that work in these shops volunteer in these shops a lot of the time. You do great work, by the way. They think that science fiction books have to have a picture of a spaceship or an alien on the cover, and something like Kindred will probably end up in the crap fiction pile, along with all the Sophie Kinsella books. The plot. We're in California, 1976. A black woman called Dana and her white husband called Kevin, and that is important to the story. They've just bought a new house and they're moving furniture, tidying up, doing some cleaning or something, and inexplicably Dana starts to feel dizzy. Everything goes fuzzy, and then suddenly she wakes up next to a river in Maryland in the year 1815. A young boy is drowning in the river. Instinctively, Dana rushes in to help him, pulls him onto the bank, saves his life, but she's then surrounded by white people, one of them holding a shotgun to her face. She then goes dizzy again and wakes up back in 1976. To cut a long story short, this keeps happening to Dana. Every time this boy, a kid called Rufus, who is the son of a slave trader, plantation owner, every time his life is in danger, Dana gets pulled through time and space so that she can save his life. Or at least she is in a position to save his life if she wants to. She's like a guardian angel. That's the science fiction element of the book. It's time travel, but it's never really explored or explained to us. But it does seem to be emotionally driven. Every time Rufus is about to die, Dana gets pulled to him, but then she can get back to her own time and space when she feels great shock or a lot of pain or extreme fear. I want to get the science fiction chat out of the way first, because that's not what the book is really about. Obviously, the scenarios that we're about to witness couldn't happen without the time travel, but it's more in line with something like Ken Grimwood's Replay or something like Groundhog Day, where it's more about people and it's not about time machines. The two timelines aren't flowing at exactly the same rate, so maybe Dana is back in California for 1 hour, but then when she gets pulled to Rufus, 5 years may have passed. The other characters can see that it's the same person, that she hasn't aged, and they do mention it, but never enough to disrupt the plot. That's not what it's about. I found it to be an almost negative aspect of the book that they didn't do more with the time travel. I honestly thought with the two different timelines it would have been extremely interesting to bring someone from that era, 1815 or whatever it is, forward to the 1970s so that they can experience life in the future just like Dana is experiencing life in the past. But they never do that because I think the story wants to concentrate on a woman from the future living in the past. Also, Dana and Kevin willingly accept time travel as though it's something that they have to just plan around, like it's just an inconvenience, rather than the most incredible thing to happen to anyone ever. But I think that's Octavia Butler just saying, it's just time travel, get over it.
Hello, Moid of the Future here. Thank you for tuning into one of our archive videos, which was recorded many moons ago. Media Death Cult has evolved a lot over the years, so be sure to check out the more recent projects on the channel. You can support what we do here by grabbing yourself a t-shirt or a mug at the merch store, using Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service, or you can actually join the cult on Patreon and gain access to our exclusive Discord server, the best read-alongs in the galaxy, and the podcast, Radio Death Cult. Links to all that good stuff in the description of this video. Thank you so much. Peace!
So what is Kindred actually about? Apart from the time travel and the fictional story and characters going on around it, the world is an accurate depiction of pre-Civil War America. In 1815, and for the 30 or so years after that, when the book takes place, slavery is legal in Maryland and other parts of America. I'm no expert on that, but I'm assuming that the conditions, the treatment of black people, and the way that that system worked was supposed to be realistic. Regardless of how much I know about this slice of history, I do know enough to say that I don't think Octavia Butler had to use artistic license. This was the way things were. But brilliantly, instead of just writing a story from a slave's point of view or a drama set on a plantation, she picks up a black woman from 1976 and dumps her into this situation. I can't stress enough how well this framing device works. Dana would have been subjected to racism in California in the 1970s. There are some flashbacks showing this, and she would have had some knowledge of the attitudes and the laws of the 1800s. But suddenly having her rights, her dignity, her humanity stripped away was so powerful that maybe time travel was the best way to tell this story. I don't know if the camera is picking this up, but I'm actually a white, middle-aged English man. Is it even possible for me to understand just a tiny fraction of what it must have been like for a black woman in 1820s Maryland? Probably not, but I can tell you I was expecting a certain amount of uncomfortable reading, almost predictable abuse, outrageous treatment. I'm not squeamish, but more than once I was genuinely shocked. Again, I am assuming that Kindred is accurate, but I never knew that the slave owners would rape the women so often and that they would have children with them, and then they would own the children, and sometimes they would sell those children. I don't know why I'm whispering. It's like a money-making venture. Rape, babies, profit, like fucking livestock. But maybe even more shocking than that was the institutionalized ideology that white people had a God-given right to own black people. It's hard to fathom. So I admit that I may lack some context because of my own life experiences, but the point is this book is designed to shock and educate, no matter who you are. Is there another concept here, something else that Butler is talking about that I didn't quite get, that I didn't really understand? Very likely, probably. It usually takes a discussion after I've released the review, talk to other people before I can really crack things open. Because Dana is a descendant, a distant relative to Rufus, she is forced to protect him. She's forced to keep him alive, at least until her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother is born. That's right there in the story, but I think there's a bit more to it. She is a slave to her own existence. She can't break away from Rufus or let him die because she'll never be born. It's the grandfather paradox, but a little bit deeper and a little bit bigger. Maybe this does have more science fiction than I first thought. I just think that there's a much bigger comment being projected there, that the future is built on the past, that this modern, tolerant woman has the same blood as this evil, racist shit. As the plot developed and the family on the plantation and everybody who works there get used to Dana turning up every now and again and hanging out for a while, I was wondering where we were going to go with this. I thought the story would be that Rufus, and maybe his mother and father as well, would start to see the world differently because of Dana. This was going to be a story about change and redemption. The last chapter would be Dana waving to everyone, "Goodbye, slave owners. Thanks for everything. My work here is done. You're not as racist as when I first met you." But no, Octavia Butler really puts the boot in. These people don't seem to learn anything. Rufus is a despicable character. I loved reading about him, but what a fucking scumbag. Every time she seemed to be getting through to him, he would just pull back and slap that authority on her. They would have conversations about him raping one of the slave girls because he could, because he owned her, that were ultimately pretty pointless. I think that's a very strong theme in this book. These ideas, this way of life, these laws are under the skin. It's terrifying and very frustrating to read about. There was almost a glimmer of sympathy, possibly, for anyone that's born into that world. It's like a religion, a tragic destiny. This is where my ignorance really shines through. I don't know if the politics at the time was just a relic of the British Empire and their slave trade, or whether this was a vital part of the American economy. The hell on earth in Kindred is that everybody is stuck in this brainwashed mentality that the colour of your skin is an indication of actual genetic superiority. Rufus displays all the usual slurs and attitudes towards Dana. She tries to educate him, but you can tell that it's never going to compute. He's never going to see it the other way. He's never going to see them as equals. And then the black people have this built-in, rewired, defeated, suppressed mentality, and everybody is all living in this fucked up world together. So I do have some sympathy for this big picture. The fact that civilization, the land of the free, could be in such a state not that long ago. However, I am reviewing a book and not a theme or an idea. No matter how important or powerful the subject matter is, I still need to have an enjoyable reading experience. Enjoyable is probably the wrong word. Kindred still needs to be good. Octavia Butler's writing style is very easy to get on with. It's simple storytelling with a little bit of flair. Certainly nothing too fancy. The first person perspective allows you to feel Dana's emotions, and I don't think another angle would have been as effective, because we really trust Dana. We never get too complicated or bogged down in information. A lot of books about people, this review's falling apart. Novels that are character driven tend to have a lot of conversations between people in rooms, and the sense of place tends to sort of fade away. She has the skill to paint a picture without too much effort. I always knew where we were. I could always see the landscape. I could feel the sun on my face and see the farm, but it doesn't feel like a really dense read. I wish I knew how to do that. All the characters were very distinctive, verging on caricatures. So, big, muscly black guys working in the fields, weaselly, evil white dudes riding horses and carrying whips, and black women with long dresses working in the kitchens. That's not a complaint. I think that's how things really were. It was literally black and white. And even though this book is full of horrible things, I did enjoy spending time in that world because there was always something happening. Dana is a very interesting character to follow, and because she's always out of time or even when she's in California, she doesn't know when she's going to be pulled back through time. There was always some tension. It was always interesting. In conclusion, I don't claim to understand half of the issues that are talked about in this book, but the fact that so much ground is covered and it's an entertaining story is quite an achievement. I would recommend this book to absolutely everyone. It's well written, it's eye-opening and thought-provoking without being too preachy. How does she do that? A score for Kindred. It's got to be pretty high because it's not perfect, but I have been thinking about it every day since I finished it, which is over a week now, and that's always a good sign. So I'm feeling up there in the 85% region, and that won't be my last Butler. Did you love Kindred? Did you hate Kindred? You didn't hate Kindred, or are you somewhere here in the middle? Let us know in the comments, please.